Welcome to Weekend Ag Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Join us for an in-depth look at Iowa agriculture. Here's your host, Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. In today's episode, Riley Smith speaks with Fred Hall of Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. Dustin Hoffmann is joined by House Ag Committee Chairman G.T. Thompson, and Russ provides his faith-based segment. Let's turn our attention now to this week's news headlines. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, National Veterinary Services Laboratories confirmed detection of antibodies to pseudorabies virus in a small commercial swine facility in Iowa. This confirmation was a result of routine testing, not pre-movement surveillance. Initial traceback indicates that the 5 affected boars came from an outdoor facility in Texas. Animals from that herd also tested positive for pseudorabies. APHIS is working with officials in Iowa and Texas to expand traceback efforts and identify any additional potential exposures. This detection does not pose a risk to consumer health or affect the safety of the commercial pork supply. There may be limited short-term impacts on exports of U.S. swine or swine genetics. Pseudorabies is a contagious viral disease of livestock and other mammals. However, pigs are the only natural host. While pseudorabies virus can infect most mammals, humans, horses, and birds are considered resistant. Fertilizer prices have been a thorn in the side of farmers for several years, and the conflict with Iran has only worsened the problem, with the Strait of Hormuz closure slowing shipping. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins recently announced measures to alleviate some of the strain on U.S. farmers due to high fertilizer cost. She says that U.S. growers need more options and certainty when purchasing fertilizer.
It's clear our farmers are feeling the pinch and the work must continue at rapid speed. There's no question ensuring our farmers can obtain the fertilizer they need at a price they can afford is a long-term problem, but one that also demands immediate solutions both for our farmers and our consumers.
Rollins details some of the actions taken by the Trump administration to improve fertilizer access for farmers.
First, of course, you all know, in March, President Trump suspended the Jones Act for 60 days to boost shipping flexibility and help vital resources like fertilizer flow more freely to U.S. ports. Just last week, President Trump further extended this waiver by 90 days. According to the U.S. Maritime Administration, we saw this tool used in early April for several anhydrous ammonia deliveries. So we've seen it actually in action, and we expect more fertilizer to come in under this waiver in the coming days and weeks.
Rollins says that the administration has taken steps to remove import restrictions in order to boost domestic supply.
We removed restrictions on fertilizer imports from Venezuela. In March, the Treasury Department waived restrictions on U.S. entities purchasing petrochemical products from Venezuela, including fertilizer, to increase domestic supply.
That's all the time we have for headlines this week. Let's turn things over now to Russ Parker and his faith-based Food for Thought segment here on Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Have been traveling this past week on the East Coast, making stops at Gettysburg, Washington, D.C., and Colonial Williamsburg. I've been to all these places in the past, but maybe because I'm older and maybe a little slower, there was somehow a different kind of appreciation for all 3 places, all full of American history. And perhaps the highlight of the trip was our day at the Battle of Gettysburg battlefield. We were guided by our own senior farm broadcaster, Dustin Hoffmann, who was a walking encyclopedia when it comes to the battles at Gettysburg and their history. And now I have a new knowledge of Day 1, Day 2, and Day 3 of the battlefield. Then we took a 2-hour trip south, which put us in our nation's capital, and again we were treated to many of the historic sites, including the National Museum of Natural History, the Washington Monument, and the Jefferson Memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial, and the Martin Luther King Memorial, the Marine Corps War Memorial, the World War II Memorial, the Korean War Veterans Memorial, and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And of course, there were sightings of the White House in the United States Capitol. And then it was off to Colonial Williamsburg, the colonial capital of Virginia, and all the Revolutionary War that took place there. A visual walk back into time. And I recall, with purposeful contemplation, a quote on the wall of the Jefferson Memorial. It read, "God who gave us life gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and that his justice cannot sleep forever. And here's the thought that struck me. After walking the fields of Gettysburg and standing among the monuments in Washington and stepping back into the beginnings of our nation in Williamsburg, it became clear that liberty has never been a casual thing or idea. It has been prayed for, fought for, sacrificed for, and preserved by generations who have understood freedom carries both blessing and responsibility. And Scripture reminds us there is even greater freedom offered to every heart. In Galatians 5 we read, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery." Today and always, let us be thankful for the liberty secured by sacrifice, and even more thankful for the eternal freedom secured by grace through Jesus Christ. Food for thought, I hope. This is Russ Parker. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Russ. Up next, we will have Riley Smith's conversation with Fred Hall of Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. That's next here on Weekend Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Farmers, stay on top of your local market with Basis Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every day, we bring you the latest corn and soybean cash prices from inland grain elevators and river terminals across Iowa. Get the prices you need to make the best-selling decisions, no matter where you are in the state. Basis Matters connects you to the numbers that matter most to your farm. Tune in every weekday only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and make informed grain marketing decisions with Basis Matters.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here's Riley Smith.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, on the phone right now with Fred Hall, Dairy Field Specialist with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. And coming up June 3rd through the 4th of this year will be the Midwest Premier Dairy Nutrition and Management Conference, the four-state Dairy Nutrition and Management Conference. Fred, if you could tell us a little bit about this conference and what all is supposed to be covered at this event.
Okay. The conference itself, it's one of the oldest dairy nutrition conferences in the country. It's really three parts. The pre-conference starts on the 3rd of June, and that's designed to look at the current industry standards for herd health. We'll talk about transition cows. We'll talk about lameness and managing it. And then we'll look at translating some of our science into practical farm decisions. In the afternoon, we'll start with the main conference, and that'll really focus on what the next production jump is. Barry Bradford from Michigan State will actually focus on finding the next 5 pounds. We'll look at data-driven feed efficiencies, and the last part of the day is kind of the program I'm really excited about. It's the second year we will honor the 7-pound club winners, and that's the high component herds in the 4-state area. And they're folks who are consulting. They have entered them, and we've ranked them. And then we have the top 3 herds who will actually be there and share what they do and answer questions from the dairy nutritionists and dairymen who actually are in the room. So it was a great program the first year, and we suspect we'll have the same kind of response for for this year. Then the next day on the 4th, we're going to start with high oleic acid soybeans. We'll talk about how these HO beans fit into ration models. We'll have a 35-year veteran talk about roasting them. It's not like a lot of other things. In order to get the true and real feed value, they've got to be roasted properly. And then we'll have a panel of nutritionists who will discuss how their people are actually feeding the beans and the results they're having. The final segment of the day of that morning is the 3-minute student thesis, which is actually graduate students who have 3 minutes to defend their hypothesis on a project they've worked on, as well as they have posters available for the folks attending to take a look at. Then a final segment in the afternoon is the program where we've got the Forage Genetics International sponsoring it. And we're going to talk about the Cornell Net Carbohydrate and Protein System. That's a model designing feeding programs for profitability and reproductive efficiency. It features several presenters, plus they'll actually tour the research center in the afternoon at West Salem. So, kind of an exciting opportunity to get there on that research facility. In addition, we have a trade show. We've got over 40 companies exhibiting the latest and greatest products that are available there. So there's really, truly, when I say something for everyone, there really is.
Having all of those things available, from that professional side, really great to see, especially that trade show. You're getting to visit the companies, top voices in the industry. But also, I would say there's a great opportunity with this being, it's extension from Iowa State, University of Illinois, University of Minnesota, and University of Wisconsin. That's a great opportunity for those producers to get together and just mingle with each other and share some of the latest information they've learned, right?
Absolutely. It's a lot of the learning is after the actual programs and before the first program of the day, when producers and consultants are rubbing shoulders and talking about our favorite subject, feeding dairy cows.
When we talk about the conference and how to get involved for those producers who are interested, where should they go to register, learn more, and just find more information?
What I suggest they do is go to Fourth State Dairy Nutrition and Management Conference, Google it, pops right up, and in that website, they'll box that says register here, be able to collect all your information as well as pay for the program right there online. And when you get there, we'll have your information ready and hand it to you. You can head right into the program.
All right. And for anybody who is interested, those prices will increase on May 7th for registration, but on-site registration is also available on June 3rd. Fred, thank you so much for taking the time to visit today, and good luck with this event, and hopefully there's a great turnout as always.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks again to Fred Hall, Northwest Iowa Extension Dairy Specialist with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, for joining us on today's show. We'll have more coverage of that event as it comes closer. Again, that's going to be at the beginning of June. That's it for segment 2, and up next, Dustin Hoffmann will be visiting with House Ag Committee Chair G.T. Thompson. We know he was out in Washington, D.C. for Washington Watch, and he has a lot of great information on everything that happened out there. We'll have that next here on Weekend Ag Matters.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune in to Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Welcome back to Weekend Ag Matters. Here's your host, Dustin Hoffmann.
Back on Weekend Ag Matters, and this week I spent in Washington, D.C. for the National Association of Farm Broadcasting's Washington Watch event, and we got to talk with House Ag Committee Chairman G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania right before the procedural rules vote in the House on the Farm Bill, which ultimately was passed on Thursday. Here's some of his remarks on the state of the agriculture situation right now and that Farm Bill that was trying to be moved through.
I guess the bottom line can anyone say Farm Bill? I mean, this has been a process. And a somewhat predictable process as we've moved along. Of course, this is a bill that we wrote not in Washington, but around the countryside, in pastures and barnyards and tool sheds, 43 different states, one territory, and probably over 160 listening sessions at this point. And where we're at in the process, as you all know, this bill passed out of committee with bipartisan votes. I believe we'll be voting on the roll here about 10:30, I think. And it'll be a combined roll. This is a pretty historic week when you think of everything that we have to get done in a day and a half. I'm scratching my head on that part. I'm not going to pack my bags anytime soon to head home. But we have FISA, we have a budget resolution, there's an education workforce bill. I mean, there's some really important stuff. But obviously, in my opinion, one of the most important things is the Farm Bill. And so the Senate, or the Rules Committee, put a lot of time into this. And I'll be meeting with my members here, and the Republican members, in just a little bit to kind of go over, what the Rules Committee had done in terms of what they found in order to vote on, what they hadn't. And then at some point, the fun will start today. I'll go back to the floor, and we'll have what amendments were made in order will come to the floor. I'll be managing the bill on the Republican side, and with any degree of luck and timeliness, at least what I was counting on at the beginning of the week, we'll have a Farm Bill. The Farm Food and National Security Act of 2026 will be passed out of the House by noon tomorrow. Now, there were some games played in rules. My Democrat friends really stretched the process out. So maybe we won't be done by noon. I don't know. We'll leave that up to leadership to figure out. But let me stop there and see what questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Dustin Hoffmann, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I know my listeners in Iowa are concerned with certain things in the bill, E15 rider, and also the Prop 12 situation. We're hearing a Mexican twist right now as it's ready to go to the floor.
Well, I'm expecting an opportunity to vote addressing Prop 12 is in the bill itself, and it's the right thing to do. It's actually following through on what the Supreme Court, in their minority opinions, told us, is that Prop 12 is an issue. It's a states' rights issue because one state can't be able to dictate to other states, but it is legislation, and we have a Farm Bill coming up. So we're just the language, the Save Our Bacon provision is in the baseline of the bill. I have to look at to see if there's going to be an amendment to try to strike that, but certainly fully supportive of that. And then, I'm sorry, with the other? E15. Oh, E15 is a separate bill. There was a lot of strategies discussed on E15, year-round E15. I'm very supportive of that. And I say that with some authority. I represent the very first oil well in the world, in this country anyways, in 1859, Drake Well, and the longest continuing operating oil refinery, 1864, still going strong in McKean County, Bradford, McKean County. And so that was, I think the strategy the leadership settled on was that was going to be a separate bill, whether it would be merged at some point with the Farm Bill. that's yet to be seen. But it is included. That's included with the package of bills that the Rules Committee has dispensed with.
Chairman Thompson was asked if he felt that E15 fell into the jurisdiction of the House Ag Committee at all.
No pushback. I've been very clear. It does not fall under the jurisdiction of the Agriculture Committee. It falls under Energy and Commerce. And despite mine being very supportive of it, I've been kind of hands off. I've said all along that's a decision above my pay grade. That's Energy and Commerce Committee would need to sign off on that, which appears they must have, and leadership would have to take some initiative with that. But it'll be good for farmers if we do that. Good for the environment, good for consumers, bring down the price of gas, and I think good for. I know there's some investment concerns with some of the refineries, but at the end, it's value added to that petroleum product of gasoline. So I think it's actually good for everybody.
Chairman was also asked about the situation concerning getting more farm workers from outside the United States in immigration reform.
Yeah. Well, obviously the goal right now is to get the Farm Food National Security Act firmly in the hands of John Bozeman on the Senate side, who is publicly, I've heard and read through many of your organizations that write about agriculture, that he is he's looking forward to taking that. He follows the bill. We've communicated with his team, but when we do that trade-off, now I think eventually we'll wind up with a conference committee, because there's certain things Senator Bozeman, Chairman Bozeman, is going to have a hard time doing in order to get 60 votes. So we're going to be very attentive there. But I do think once we hand it off, it gives us enough breathing room that I'm looking forward to a public release of draft language for reform to really a food security bill, reform to H-2A program. And so I don't want to, when we did the digital asset one out of committee, that public draft lasted, I think, a year. Maybe. I don't have that kind of patience right now. So we're going to go 3 weeks since we've done a great job of writing that bill, talking with producers and processors. But there will be at least 3 weeks to a month opportunity for folks to take a look at the discussion draft, give us any last comments and recommendations, and then we're going to get that bill introduced. And I look forward to dropping that bill with strong bipartisan support. It will be assigned jurisdiction by the Judiciary Committee. And I've had some really positive discussions with Chairman Jordan about the bill.
Outside of the Farm Bill, there has been talk on whether or not there would be more bridge assistance payments to farmers. Chairman Thompson had this to say.
Yeah, timeline's pretty easy. I'd like to see it as soon as possible. Now, we've been a bit consumed, obviously, with the Farm Bill. Vehicle, no. I don't have a specific vehicle I could name at this point. I've really enjoyed working with Senator Bozeman and Senator Hoeven on this issue, and they're and we're on the same page. We just need to build out a little more infrastructure on that so-called economic assistance bridge, to get us to where the Farm Bill 1.0 provisions that passed were signed into law last July, but now really coming into reality in terms of implementation. And also, I think the transformational parts of this Farm Bill 2.0, which is obviously the National Farm Food and National Security Act. All those are going to be really good for our farm families, ranch families, forestry families in rural America, but specifically we need a bridge to get to that part. It's challenging. It's very difficult, and it has been for some time. And if we don't do that, if we don't accomplish all of that, and then I think we're facing more bankruptcies, I think we're facing food insecurity, and I think we're facing economic harm. And I don't know of anybody that works on Capitol Hill that thinks that any of those three things are a good thing, except maybe anyone that wants to politicize it for a November election. And I have bumped into a few of those people.
With trade being one of the top-of-mind subjects, the chairman was asked his thoughts on the renegotiation of USMCA.
Well, obviously I want to see USMCA kept intact. I think that's just the best approach. I've had communications with our U.S. Trade Ambassador, Jameson Greer. I saw as late as yesterday, spent some time with with Ambassador Greer. He is an individual that truly supports agriculture. It's a top priority. We got a few things, that we need to work out. Most I'm sort of partial to dairy, and so the whole supply management that Canada has used is an issue that needs to be worked out. But overall, I think USMCA was a really good achievement under the first Trump administration. So I'm not looking to I think as we reauthorize, and we should. One of the worst things we've ever done in the past. When I say we, that includes my predecessors, is that they accomplish these trade agreements and then they walk away from them and think that they're just on automatic operation. And that's just not true. Everything around here needs to be reauthorized periodically to make sure it's updated and make sure it's addressing the new challenges that are out there.
That again was House Ag Committee Chairman G.T. Thompson here on Weekend Ag Matters, and that's going to wrap up this week's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. On behalf of Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Russ Parker, I thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.